questions.
Yes, sir.
Background, the mirror's probably not great.
How did you feel when?
Do you want to switch?
Yeah, why don't we, because I just think if they take a shot
I'll follow
at
you.
it's going to be...
He's the comms manager for the...
Yeah, I just
What do you
realized,
want to
guys, we've got nothing but mirrors behind you.
Okay.
So, let's just, why don't we just go, we'll just shift to the other side.
Some people get over here, the big privileges. Vivek, sir, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. What do you feel that you bring to the Trump administration when it comes to having a second Trump administration, you part of it? What do you feel that you bring to the job?
Look, I think that I'm focused on how to maximize impact on this country. I ran for president on a campaign that frankly overlaps with a lot of the principles that people in this room tonight, I believe, care about. And I want to change this country for the better and revive who we are. And I think President Trump is a guy who proved in the first 4 years that he led this country far more successfully than President Biden did, and that's why he has my full support. I'm actually glad he's coming here. And I think that it's important. One of the things I'll talk about tonight is I think the future of this country is going to be a libertarian nationalist alliance that rescues this country and revives what our founding fathers envisioned. The establishment in both parties suffers from, I think, an institutional bipartisan consensus that favors funding foreign wars that don't advance the U.S. interests, that favors the overgrowth of an administrative state that's choking the lifeblood out of this country. And I think that it's going to take people who are willing to question the dogmas even of their own party to be able to actually stand for the pro-American principles that set the country into motion in the first place. So I want to maximize impact is the answer. And so whatever maximizes positive impact on this country and helping save us, that's what I'm going to do.
So you've been reported as a VP pick. What do you feel about that?
Look, I'm not going to address specific positions or otherwise, but somebody gave me a piece of advice a long time ago, which was it takes about as much effort to do something really small as it does to do something really big. And so life is short, have the biggest impact you can, and that's what led me to run for president. I'm going to do whatever's required to maximize my positive impact on the country. That's what I will say.
Do you think there's any lessons in the 2020 election for the 2024 election if you're going to be involved in it?
I think there's actually even a bigger lesson that's more recent in the 2022 2022 midterm, which was that the Republican Party, and I've been saying this, to everybody, Republican or not, the Republican Party cannot just criticize Joe Biden, in part because I think there is still a reasonable probability that Joe Biden will not be the nominee. I think part of the reason the debate, CNN debate, if we call it that, was hosted on June 27th is I believe it, in some sense, it looks like a final audition for the Democratic nomination for Joe Biden. But the agenda can't just be criticizing Biden or even criticizing the other side. I think we have to stand for an alternative vision of our own of what it means to be an American. So
I'm talking more in terms of election procedures. In other words, if the election was stolen,
you got to play by the existing system to change the system. I think we need single-day voting on Election Day as a national holiday with paper ballots and government-issued ID as a condition to vote. But you're only going to get there if you actually win, and win big in the system that we already have.
Do you think libertarian voters can hurt President Trump?
I think libertarian voters will help President Trump because I've actually had a lot of conversations with President Trump since I left the race and have endorsed him. He has a lot of strong libertarian instincts, actually. One of the things that he and I discussed in New Hampshire was, which he's since been public about, is the opposition to a central bank digital currency. He has taken that stand. He has planted that flag in the ground. So I think President Trump, I've known him for a long time. He has strong internal libertarian instincts. And so I think it's great to become, I don't know if it's the first time in history, it might be, that you have a nominee, certainly a front runner for the U.S. presidential nomination, coming to the Libertarian Party convention tomorrow night. Top 4 candidate coming the night before from the Republican Party to the Libertarian convention. I think it is going to be an alliance between the positive nationalist movement in this country, the America First movement, and the libertarian movement that revives this country and saves who we are. I truly believe that. And that's why I'm here.
There are signs at this convention saying they're trying to make sure that Biden and Trump are not elected. Do you think that says anything about the Libertarian Party?
So look, I don't want to, totally front run my speech, but I can, it's going to be in half an hour anyway, so I might as well tell you one of the things that I was going to challenge the audience with tonight is I'll be very honest about where I see the Republican Party as meeting a fork in the road. I think the Democratic Party is increasingly a lost cause for this country. But I think the Libertarian Party is also at a fork in the road this year. I think the question the Libertarian Party has to ask, the question this gathering has to ask of itself is, what is its goal? Is the goal to achieve, at maximum, 3% of the general vote? What was it last time, 1.2%? At maximum, shooting for a 3% goal and calling that a victory? Or is the goal to actually shape policy in this country in a meaningful way, to work together with what I hope is the next administration, the Trump administration, the second term, to actualize the vision of this libertarian movement? I think that's a worthy goal. I think that's an achievable goal. I think it's the goal we're going to achieve. But that's a real question for this room that I'm going to be addressing soon to ask itself, and that's what I'm going to challenge everybody in that room to answer.
Are you talking about fusion?
I'm talking about the question of how we actually turn into reality the ideals of freedom enshrined in our Constitution. How do we actually revive free speech in this country? How do we actually revive medical freedom in this country? How do we actually revive a country where a Justice Department does not discriminate against its political opponents? Revive a nation where it's actually run by the people who we elect to run the government, rather than unelected bureaucrats who are exercising power today. How do we get that country back? A country where we're not forking over foreign aid of our own taxpayer dollars to foreign countries that don't advance our own interests. How do we flatten the tax code? How do we allow anybody to succeed with their own hard work without the government impeding their success at every step of the way? How do we unshackle the energy industry, declare independence from this climate cult? These are core issues to my campaign. They are core issues to the America First movement, and they are core issues to the people who are in this room.
Was that a yes or a no?
Well, the answer is, the question was
Fusion.
not a coherent one. What?
No, I said, is this, you're talking about fusion? No, fusion in terms of, basically libertarians endorsing Trump or.
I think there is a fusion of interests.
I'm talking
I
about
think
a fusion
there's
campaign.
of interests.
You know what it means.
I think do I believe everybody in this room should do everything they can to make sure the best possible candidate who can get elected for president gets elected president, and then work together with Donald Trump, and if I'm part of it, with me in the next administration, to actualize those policies. Yes, I think that's the best approach for the United States of America.
Do you
Okay.
support opening the debates, and if so, what should be like our criteria?
Opening the debates.
Yeah, the presidential debates.
Oh, look, I think more debate is, I've always been a fan of the debates I participated in, but I think that having a head-to-head debate, let's see that first of all. President Biden has only agreed to this debate after a year of denying his participation in it. So I think that we should actually cut through the sham of the debate that's been arranged, which is that this is Biden's final step to audition for his own nomination. This is the earliest ever presidential debate conducted in U.S. history, in televised U.S. history. And it's the first debate that's happening before the nominating convention itself. So I prefer to cut through the farce that this is something other than a final hoop that they want to vet their own candidate before nominating. And I think the race really only begins after that.
What do you think about RFK's campaign and his inclusion?
I'll have a few
in the
words to say
debates?
that. I'll have a few words to say about my views on some of RFK's policies. I know that he was here earlier today. Look, I respect his views on medical freedom, but I think he's in no sense a libertarian. I mean, the fact of the matter is somebody who believes, or has said he believed, that people should be imprisoned for spreading climate disinformation is an affront to the First Amendment. I think for somebody who cares about human flourishing, his opposition to nuclear energy is mystifying. I think for somebody who cares about freedoms in this country, his standing for the expansion of the regulatory state on issues ranging from environmentalism to consumer protection defy what a true libertarian would actually stand for. And so I think there's more to being a libertarian than cultivating a vibe. It comes down to actual hard policy positions that relate to core principles of freedom. Last two questions.
You're here at the Libertarian National Convention, so I would assume you agree with the non-aggression principle.
I agree with non-aggression principles at their core, but the question is how you actually apply those. My view is the United States should look after its interests just as every nation should look after its own. And I do not believe that most of our foreign aid is going in a direction that actually advances our interests.
Well, commenting
That's
on
what
a foreign conflict, what do you say about innocent Palestinians as the non-aggression principle? Should it apply to them?
The principle that I espouse, because I'm running, I ran for U.S. president, I am now supporting people running for U.S. president, Donald Trump, is the job of the U.S. is to support allies to the extent it advances U.S. interests. And so I do believe that the United States has a right and responsibility to defend itself if attacked. And I think any other nation that's attacked, including Israel, has a responsibility to defend itself as well. But I do think that the United States' job is to look after the interests of its own citizens and advance a foreign policy that aligns with that as its sole goal.
So it's not in our interest to defend Israel?
Hey, we believe in free speech.
Here if he's not going to endorse our candidate.
But Vivek, just to clarify your answer.
He's free to express himself. That's fine.
It's not in our interest to defend Israel.
Can I
Is that
take
what
a
you're saying?
question?
Yes.
So I've just been clear about Israel's right to defend itself, and I believe in standing for Israel's diplomatic right to defend itself. Israel's not short on money. What Israel's short on is diplomatic support to be able to defend itself. And just as I wouldn't want other countries or the UN telling us we can't defend ourselves, I don't think it's the job of the UN or the United States to tell Israel that
The
it can't
original
defend itself.
question is killing innocents defending yourself?
I think that your question is loaded with a characterization that I don't buy into the premise of your
30,000
question.
bodies
So-
don't,
Yes.
you don't
Thank
see them?
you.
Well, it's not the job. I don't believe it's the job of the United States to be the world's. To take a principle that people in this room agree with. If you ask those of us in this room, do people believe it's the United States' job to be the global policeman? The answer is no. So practice what you preach is what I
So
would
why
say.
are you doing it?
And last question.
Yes, I'm with ctpolitics.tv, and there are a lot of candidates now who are America First, who are running as libertarians or as independents or as Republicans, who are fighting against extreme wealth and privilege, and there's a huge disadvantage when it comes to running under these circumstances. People who really want to make change, been inspired by your run for candidacy for presidency, what advice would you have to those candidates?
Well, I'd say I have a commentary that relates to what you just described, because I do think the influence of money in politics has been corrosive to our system. I do believe that. Now, I'm not one of these people that divides and adopts a Democratic Party neo-Marxist worldview that says it's between the oppressors and the oppressed, and they have to apologize for your success. No, I reject that. I think that if you succeed the right way through the front door and you achieve great wealth in this country, that's a beautiful thing. So I think what many libertarians would also support. But using that to capture the political system is, I think, where that game goes awry. And so should we end the lobbying capture of the way these laws are made in the town that we're in? I think we should. I think should we effectuate term limits that limit the entrenchment of both elected leaders as well as bureaucrats? I do think we need to as well. And so my advice would be to focus, as such candidates you describe, on changing those basic rules of the road. Until we change those basic rules of the road, the results aren't going to change. And I do think it's going to take candidates who think outside of the box of the establishment of both parties to advance causes like term limits, vote for both bureaucrats as well as legislators, to advance causes, let's say, you know what, congressmen should not be trading individual stocks while they're sitting in Congress, to say that, you know what, it's not a good thing for some congressman to become a lobbyist within at least 10 years or ever after they leave their job in Washington, D.C. And I think you're going to find strong nonpartisan or transpartisan support for those ideas that you see very few professional politicians advancing today. Thank you, guys. I'm looking forward to the speech, and we'll see you guys in there. Thanks for arranging.